Yo. Welcome to the Lab Science Podcast, episode 33. I am Professor Sense with my good homie.
Yours, Lean Automatic.
Good to have you back, sir.
I know it's good.
It's been a little bit of time, maybe like a week or two since we talked. To those that are listening, I always try to speak to Lean as little as possible so we can have these candid conversations during the show. But yeah, man, you had a lot going on in the past 2 weeks, so we should probably kind of dive into it, man. How have you been doing? What have you been up to? What's been going on?
Oh man, just been taking advantage of the rest of the summer that we have out here in the city. So did some traveling. I'm like a 3 times a week at the beach kind of guy. So
in New York, that's pretty impressive, man.
In New York, yeah. So when I take a vacation, I beach hard.
Yeah.
So we went to we were supposed to take a cruise out to Bermuda, but the hurricane that hit South Carolina rerouted us to the Bahamas. Then the hurricane intensified, so we basically got rerouted to the center of southern Atlantic Ocean.
Damn.
And then back to New York. So luckily we got to hit. We stopped in Florida, then we stopped in like Bahamas once. Then we dipped and then took 3 days to get back to New York to go around the hurricane that hit South Carolina.
Jesus.
Yeah. So luckily, thankfully for us, we had, no sunny skies every day. There was no real weather problem. But I
love how there's a hurricane coming and you're like, yeah, I'm still going on this fucking cruise.
Yeah, bro, we fucking went all the way around that ship. Big ass cruise ship. So it's pretty dope.
That's what's up.
Yeah,
I'm sure that was inspiring, man.
Yeah, I wrote a lot of lyrics for sure. I was writing like the whole time, basically.
Something about being like near and around big bodies of water, it kind of gives you this sense of space.
Yeah.
And I think that helps the process.
Definitely. And I didn't have any service or anything too, so the phones were pretty much useless.
No, super helpful.
Yeah. I was just writing stuff down,
That's dope.
Yeah. So what were you up to this past time? Oh, did the honeymoon. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. I know we referenced it before kind of briefly and then just went back into talking about music shit. But yeah, it was a lot of fun for similar reasons. I got detached from my phone. I went to the beach with notepad out a lot. Yeah. I got a lot of planning for the podcast done, oddly enough. It was one of those things where I got away from it and I got excited again.
Yeah. Shit starts running through your mind a little smoother.
For sure. And we'll actually talk about this later on today. We're going to talk about calendar systems and that being one of the biggest things that came from the trip. But it was cool, man. Nice. As we mentioned, it was for the honeymoon. So it was a chance for me to really sit back and see what I'm doing with life and how to go forward. And it calibrated everything real nicely. So it helped. It changed my diet a lot too, man. Like,
oh yeah,
being in Hawaii and around a lot of seafood and fresh food. I came back here like I'm not eating any bullshit anymore. So
exactly. Now there's a lot of preservatives, in the American diet.
It's crazy, dude. Like I was saying last week, I started this Whole30 diet, which like you basically can't have carbs and soy and sugar and a bunch of stuff. And it hasn't been that hard because you can still eat meat and veggies and that's all you really need. But
bingo. One
thing that's been funny to see is how much like soy is in everything.
That's crazy. Sugar too.
Sugar and soy, bro. They're like it's fucking in water and shit. Like it makes no sense. It makes no sense. So something to think about, man. I really do. We talked about it a while ago, but I think what you put in your body really does dictate the output. So that was a cool takeaway from the trip.
Nice.
So yeah, man, let's get into the lab report because we got a lot to cover this week. With the streaming, it always seems kind of weird to talk about labels, but there's certain labels that I think are staples for hip hop and still doing big things. So this was kind of big news. BMG has acquired an LA-based label known as RBC Records. You may or may not know RBC, but they are known in the rap industry for working with artists before they get big, or even when they're big, if they want to do independent projects. And, some of their clients were Chief Keef, Waka, Flippa. They've worked with Run the Jewels. They work with E40, Gold Link. They still have Chief Keef and they still have Waka, as a matter of fact.
That's crazy. Turn Up Guys is crazy.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Like, I really think it's a cool kind of a validating thing that a big label like BMG looks at a small RBC and says, hey, we want to scoop this up. The one thing that I get concerned with is when this happens, when an Interscope, a BMG, a Universal, whoever steps in, they tend to not get it as much as the indie labels did.
Yeah. I mean, you know what happens when major labels take over. Whoever's the best out of the 1,200 acts they sign might have a chance. The rest of you guys, I don't mean to discourage anyone.
That's real.
That's just real. Like what they do. Yeah,
that's real. And when you look at the two artists that I think about the most, Chief Keef and Waka, both of them are making money elsewhere, so they're not as motivated as a new artist to go chase the bag,
right?
Through a label's means.
That's what these indie labels were letting them do, though. So what's the story going to be now that BMG has them?
Yeah,
are they going to let them keep continue as they were doing and try to make it on? They're killing it.
Yeah,
basically off of word of mouth.
Yeah, and that's, to me, word of mouth is always going to be the number one thing to get you more work. And that's what these indie labels get best, I think. I don't see BMG treating, especially the up-and-coming artists, with the same level of care and touch that RBC is known for. I don't like this trend, man. This whole, buy out the indie and shelve them.
Yeah.
Especially in hip-hop, they lose so much of the little cultural pieces of the labels. When you look at like Raucous or Stone's Throw and all of these earlier on independent hip hop labels, they did things that the majors didn't, and that's what made them cool. That's what made them on the fringe. And I feel like you lose that in a big label system.
Yes, although there are a lot of artists on BMG. I mean, that is one of the biggest labels there is out. Biggest major label out right now.
As independent distribution is more of a thing, as you can get your art straight to consumers now, I just see less of a need for this kind of thing happening. So I'm always wary about it. We'll see. Maybe they're giving some young guys and girls an opportunity at a bigger label. I'm very curious about BMG's next moves.
Oh, yes.
On another set of next moves, I guess, I wanted to talk a little bit about Isotope RX7. And Isotope RX is something that I use a lot. It was something that I started using recording people in bedrooms and living rooms, because you inevitably had some kind of noise on the vocal.
Yep.
But RX, for those that don't use it, it's a correction tool. It's a vocal suite and corrective suite. You can get background noise, clipping, hum, reverb, all kinds of bad shit out of audio. And it's always been used in the podcasting world. I use it to clean up our podcast every week.
It's like a quick kind of combination of limiters, compressors, gates, and things like that to clean up your mix.
It does the leveling side of things really well, but it also does spectral analysis. So you can, I for vocalmixes.com, the site that I have where I'm editing vocal projects, I worked with this podcast called Brooklyn Combine. Okay. And they interviewed Jamel Shabazz, this dope photographer. If you don't know him, he's huge in the hip hop world. But the interview was, so noisy. They're moving chairs. There's air conditioning noises and shit. And I'm thinking, damn, I really want to mix this project for them, but I literally don't think we can use this audio. And I started really, really diving into RX.
Yeah.
You can clean all that shit up because it does a spectral analysis. So
Isotope is really good at that.
It's great, bro. And it does those things that EQs and limiters can't do. But the reason why I wanted to talk about RX7 specifically, this one is geared more towards musicians. And the two tools that I think are going to be really incredible to see if they work really well are this dialogue contour tool and this vocal isolation tool. Okay. The dialogue contour tool is basically something that allows you to change the intonation on a word.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if I go wow versus wow.
Exactly. So if you that last little bit of your word, you can trail it up or trail it down. That's super useful if you have a recording in your house that's 99% perfect.
And you just got to hit that one little. Yeah, I'm in the middle of recording right now, and that would help me out a lot. But
have you been in that boat before where you come back to a recording a day later, and even if it's the same space, you can't get the exact same sound to fix one punch in?
Right. No, yeah, definitely. And a lot of times it's just more, it feels better when you just do it all in one shot.
For sure. I feel like it, because you get all that energy captured at once. I think there's something there for sure. And that's why I think this dialogue contour tool could be really cool. I feel like I'm going to use it a lot more for broadcast and post, but for rappers especially, if you're working with a client and they send you a rough that you have to mix off site, and there's just one little syllable you need up or down, just like we're getting used to using auto-tune more regularly, I can see this being something I use in a lot of vocal mixes.
Yeah, this thing looks dope.
The other tool that I thought was really neat is this dialogue isolation. And basically, this is a way of removing acapellas and instrumentals from each other out of full songs. Normally, I would be really wary about this claim because mad pieces of software have said, hey, you can turn this into an acapella.
Oh, yeah. So what do they do? Like phasing to cancel EQ out, you know?
They do a bit of phasing, but they also do spectral analysis. And if it's as powerful as their other tools, I at the very least want to give it a shot. I mean, I'm wary about it, but shit, if I can even get somewhat of an instrumental out of some of these songs that I can't, that's reason enough to have it.
And this spectral analysis is kind of like it's like a live active feature, isn't it? Doesn't it like constantly move as the audio moves forward?
Mm-hmm. So there's two ways of using RX. Most of the tools can work in real time, just like a plugin. So you drag and drop them in. Mm-hmm. Some of the tools require you to analyze audio. So for those, you highlight the audio you want to analyze, and then you have RX running in the background as standalone. And you can send the audio to RX to edit, and then send it back into Ableton or send it back into Pro Tools.
Nice.
So it works as a third-party sample editor too. I really want to use 7. They actually have it in Splice for like $16 a month.
That's pretty good.
I think I might do the upgrade and see how it goes. Maybe we'll do some audio samples. If you're using RX7 as a producer, as a vocalist, I would love to hear your approach to it because there's so many ways to do it. Shoot us an email, labsciencepodcast@gmail.com.
File done.
I know. All right, so I want to move on and tell a story. It's story time. I feel like I should do the.
I love this part of the segment.
Should put on the Mr. Rogers sneakers flip right now. Yeah. I feel like
I want to tell a story.
My corncob pipe. Anyway, so it might not seem like it because we're on this podcast every week, and this is why I like having Lean because he gives me all this extra confidence. But I'm a super fucking shy person. I get really nervous, especially when it comes down to DJing and music stuff, because I treat it seriously. You know, I usually am working with other people, so I don't want it to fuck up. So I had a story from back in the day that I thought would help if you kind of are in the same boat as me, because I think it's important to remind people how to push forward in life.
Absolutely.
Way back when I was DJing for Esquire and Despot, we ended up being lucky enough to go on tour with Run the Jewels right before they were Run the Jewels. It was an awesome experience. I learned a lot. I DJ'd a bit during that tour, but I mainly was just, the DJ for the rappers. Fast forward about a year, they're getting more popular. They started to do another tour. They did a few spot dates on the East Coast and asked me and X if we would come and do some of the East Coast dates. So we picked up a show in Philly, a show in Baltimore, and a New York show in Webster Hall. I had already told myself I wanted to do more as a DJ for these spot dates and not be so shy about shit. So I used that time to go into Tractor. I started working with the remix decks, and I put together these crazy mashup routines that had like loops from different hooks, Dipset songs, triggered synth. It was me trying to.
I know them shits was fire.
It was fun, bro. And I honestly didn't do it enough, and I should get back into it. But I don't know. Do you remember Girl Talk?
Absolutely.
It was super inspired by Girl Talk's approach to just grabbing like bits and pieces of everything. And it took a lot of work, but it was a lot of fucking fun, right? So my plan was to do it in every city. I did the set in I think Philly. It went really well. I did it in B-More. It went really well. The last show we're supposed to do is in New York and Webster Hall. It's 10 times larger than any of the other venues that we've done. It's
Love Webster Hall.
I miss that venue, man.
Yeah, me too.
It was hometown. It was one of those things where my nerves were not ready for it, even though I had done all this fucking prep. I'm using like a bunch of Tractor elements, yada, 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 yada. I was not ready to do it. So I'm in the green room pacing back and forth, right?
I know that green room you're talking about there.
Fucking terrified. X's set that I have to take care of, that's fine. Despot set that I have to take care of, that's fine. But there's this like phantom 20 minutes that they have penciled in for me that people don't know about. And that's when I'm supposed to do my big Tractor performance.
There he is, ladies and gentlemen.
And I'm fucking terrified, dude. So L sees me, asked if I'm ready. I'm like, haha, yeah. I kind of laughed it off. I changed the subject and I kind of walked away thinking, you know what? if I just get lost for a little bit and then come back later when it's time to DJ for my rappers, no one will notice that I missed my set.
Oh my God.
L will be too busy with shit. L will be too busy with Mike to even notice it. They'll have music playing from the in-house DJ, so it'll be fine. Maybe I should just sit this one out. And I feel like L could read my fucking mind.
Rocky.
Because normally he wouldn't really talk to me that much before shows, and this was the one time where he kept kind of checking in on me.
Word.
And making sure that, you know what I mean, like I was good, you good, your computer up
cool
there.
Ass dude, yo.
L is a really, really good person, and that was one of the big reasons why I wanted to tell this story. I was really intimidated by him and found out after a full tour, because we hadn't gotten that close until this day. But I found out after just opening up to somebody, he was just a regular ass dude. So the first big point that we should bring up is if you're nervous about approaching your idols, your heroes, people that you look up to, you kind of need to calm that fear, because they usually have gone through it too, and they can be the person that pushes you forward.
Absolutely.
So long story short, I end up deciding to fucking do the gig. I get on stage. Dallas Penn is introing me. My computer doesn't turn on.
Oh, man.
But it's fine. I restarted, tried booting it up a couple times. It finally turns on. I play the gig. I have, in my opinion, my favorite set of my life. I had such a fucking fun time. It's a thrill to play to a crowd that big.
You're the best.
But more importantly, afterwards, somebody stopped me and said, you know what? I want to DJ too. This has been one of the top 3 DJ sets I've heard in my life. He compared it to a set he heard from A-Rap Music and Just Blaze, which motivated Bruh, it motivated the fuck out of me. I was thinking about hanging up DJing, and that shit pushed me. But it also
let's go.
Yeah, but more than that, it pushed somebody else to start DJing. It pushed somebody else to explore their creative passions and to do it differently. Me and him ended up talking about how Tractor is different from Serato. I made a friend. I actually still talk to this dude. I made a big friend out of that shit. So my point really was, A, don't be afraid to push yourself. B, don't be afraid to approach artists and people that you feel like are above your skill level. And C, really take a second and recall when you were nervous and when you got over something, because that now is something I go back to when I'm nervous currently. You know what I mean? If I have a gig that's really important that I'm kind of freaking out about, I can go back to that day, and now I feel a lot better about going forward.
Yo, I just feel like I was right there in the crowd, and the audience doesn't know that 10 years later, that boy was me.
Man, salute to L. Salute to I can't stop laughing when you're on the fucking show. Salute to L. Salute to all the creatives that take care of other creatives, because we're all shy folks at the end of the day at some point, and we push each other through that.
Yeah, man, that's a dope moment.
Yeah, man, it was a great fucking show. Salute to Webster Hall too. I missed that shit so goddamn much.
I just want to say one thing real quick. You know,
please.
When you're on a ship for 7 days straight, you start to get what we call sea legs. Not just a Run the Jewels reference, but I definitely still have sea legs right now. Feels like I'm on a boat in my own apartment. This is great.
Are you sure this is the boat and not being away from marijuana for more than 7 days? Coming back to, you know what I mean?
Who said I was away from marijuana for 7 days?
My man. But yeah, man, let's I guess move into the main topic at hand today. Today is not a creative episode. It's really a career episode. I want to get you guys right. I want to get you guys making some money and get your mind serious. I've been really, really excited and kind of pushing myself more lately. I signed up for the Profitable Producer course, which is a course done by a colleague, Brian Hood. He's a real dope engineer who now teaches the business side of running a home studio.
Very important.
Super important, and something that so many of us ignore because we're spending our time learning the process, which you have to. You should know how to mix before you then have to open a studio. But because of taking this course and because of seeing the business side of things, I can really see my inefficiencies. And I thought it would be really cool as I uncover them to start to reveal them to others. So if it's something that you're dealing with, something that's a shortcoming to you, you can start thinking about it and plan for your future. With that in mind, there's 2 big things that I think every producer, every artist, every engineer, DJ could really work on that can improve their productivity, can improve their workflow and their output. and that's their calendar and their website.
Oh, absolutely.
So I thought it would be cool today to talk about those two things and bring up a couple of key considerations that I picked up in the course, and we can open up things from there. So first things first, calendars. I avoided using a calendar for a really long time, and I think it was subconsciously me not wanting to face how scattered my life is. Bro,
and having reminders and actually having to do those things.
It's one of those things where if you don't know how to sit down and set it up at first, it can be really overwhelming, so you never do. And that was me the whole way. So that being said, I think it's super important. The first part of that class was really doing a brain dump and writing down your daily tasks, your weekly tasks, your monthly tasks, all the recurring things that you do, and getting them on a calendar. So I spent a good 4 or 5 hours doing that for my next year. My calendar right now is fucking filled up with almost every hour of my day kind of slotted out. It's nuts.
Yo, it must be so nice.
Yeah, man, it's nuts how quickly, like 4 hours seems like a long time, but considering the gains, I think it was super worth it.
Yeah.
It's important because, and this is the first kind of key thing I took from this part, when you have to share your minutes for each thing each week, and when you have to like plot them out, it makes you prioritize what you're doing.
Exactly.
You know it best. You're working on DJing all week, you're engineering, you're recording, you're doing all of these different tasks. And if you don't have them all kind of, or at least for me, if I don't have them all in a place where I can see them all at once, I can't properly ration out how much time I need for everything. And then most of it ends up not getting done.
Definitely. When you can see, what you have coming at you, basically, it does make it a lot easier to deal with when it's time.
For sure. So that was the first big takeaway, just kind of switching things over. It really bugged me out in terms of how much dead weight I was able to cut off, tasks that I do in a weekly that don't need to be done weekly. It really kind of cleared things up having that all in one spot. The second big takeaway that I took from this part of the course, rather than just focusing my calendar on like studio shit and work shit, I included housework. And I included chores and errands and things that you do during the week, laundry, grocery shopping, getting the car fixed. And the reason that that's important for me to mention, I think if you only put your studio stuff on your calendar, life will interrupt.
Yeah.
Because it's not planned for,
Exactly. Yeah. Definitely.
So you try to adhere to the schedule and you actually end up having to move things around. So I rather get ahead of it now. Like I know every day there's certain things I need to get done in the house. I know once a week there's certain things I have to get done in the house. And going back to that first tip, visualizing all the shit that has to go on in my house made me realize, damn, I need to get on top of this. Like there's more than I really thought about. So it got to the point where I looked at my day and realized I got to get up at 6 a.m.
Yep. You have a better sense of urgency. You feel like you're going to be late to things, and that's not a good feeling.
For sure. When you have that feeling of urgency and don't know what it's going towards, that's a horrible way to live, man. You're kind of on edge all the time.
At least now you're focused. You know what you have to get done, and you know that it needs to get done quickly.
For sure. Less scrambling and more direct movement. Yep. So the third thing that I'll talk about, and we'll move on to websites after this, but when it comes down to a calendar, it makes it easier to convey your professional boundaries to your loved ones and to your clients. So my wife and I share a home, obviously. My studio space is in my home. When I'm working on studio stuff, for the most part, she's good about giving me that boundary. But there are certain times where, she wants to hang out with her husband. That makes total sense. We enjoy each other's company. By having a calendar now, I can literally show her, hey, these are the things I have to get done today during these hours. If you interfere with any of these hours, it's going to push into the free time that I have scheduled for us. And that's a much easier conversation to have with a loved one if you're having difficulty sharing that time. But also when you talk about clients, if you have an app like Calendly, it does the exact same thing for people out-facing. So they get access to your calendar. They can see when you're busy. They can see when you're not. And now they'll respect your time more and will look at you more professionally because that's how you approach your calendar.
I've seen people in all fields use that kind of a method where, you book an appointment with, through this app, you can see their schedule clearly, but on the back end, we have everything set. We know who's supposed to be coming in, what free time we do have. Those apps are great ways to schedule, any sort of clientele.
That's a fact. It's interesting how many, like on the marketing side and just on the app side of things, so many of these apps you and I will discover in other lines of work.
Yeah.
Calendar tools, that's more
Yep.
from like my marketing days. And I'm sure that's more from your administrative and marketing days. We so often try to separate that from our creative lives, but you shouldn't. Like if you get good at these tools at work, use them at play. You know what I mean? Because
Exactly.
this studio shit is work, you know? So Calendly is really dope for that. I'll actually link to it in the show notes. That's one of my favorite apps for exactly what you just said, having people look at your schedule, and then to them, all they see is just open slots, and they can schedule a call, they can schedule a meeting. But to you, you can see how many times they visited websites. If you're tracking properly, you can get all these additional backhand tools that will help you for the meeting.
The most important thing is that it creates a profile for the user, so all your information is there.
Absolutely.
Creates a contact, basically.
And that contact can, well, we won't go into a CRM yet like Salesforce, but that's exactly what that leads to next. So that's a really good point. So let's move on to the last thing we wanted to talk about today on this concept, and that's your website. If you offer a service, you need a fantastic website. It's 2018, right?
Yeah.
If you're a DJ, producer, engineer, songwriter, rapper, manager, promoter, you offer a service. I don't think people really think about it that way, especially when you're talking about the musicians, right? But your service is music. Your service is songwriting.
Yep.
You offer a thing. And as such, your website's number one goal is to pull people to your service offering. If you're a DJ, you want to pull people to booking you. If you're a rapper, you want to pull people to booking you or to collaborating with you. So if your website does anything other than pulling people to that first, it's not as efficient as it should be.
Right. And it's important to, make sure that people are, you want to make sure everyone is going through your email. This gives a better sense of reality, even when working with someone digitally.
So important. So important. I'm glad you said that specifically, because I want to go into some tangible tips on your website. And that email suggestion is really ties into the first one.
Yes.
So the first tip for a really efficient site is a call to action. Your website needs to be directing people to doing something. That's what a call to action is. I mean, even when you do social media posts, they say you should have a call to action. You're trying to get somebody to click a link, to call you, to text you, to email you, so on and so forth. For most people in our fields, the call of action is just what Lean said, getting somebody to your inbox. If you look at vocalmixes.com, my service there is mixing and editing services, right? My call to action is to get you to my inbox so I can start a conversation and see how I can help you. On my site, at the very top, there's a request a quote button. As you go down my site, there's various other sections that will click you back to that request a quote button. And at the bottom, there is a form where you can fill out a contact. All of these funnel into my email.
Right. You don't want someone to go onto your website and say, what do I do now?
100%. If I step like a couple of feet back from where I would normally look at a computer and look at your website, I should still be able to navigate around.
Yeah.
And that's super important. So not only do I have a call of action of get a quote, request a quote on my site, I took the extra steps and went with Wix to design the site because they're more modern. And I have that request a quote button animate into the website about a half a second after the site loads. So it's the last thing that catches your eye, it moves, and it forces you to want to actually implement that motion, implement that action. So First huge tip, it ties right into what Lena was saying. You want to get people to a call of action. Mostly you want to get people into your inbox. So if your website right now doesn't have a direct call of action that you can see as soon as you load it, meaning I go to your site, before I scroll down, I should have a call of action. If that's not there already, start on that today.
Yep.
Tip number 2 for your website, and this is for people like Lean who can't stay in one place for more than 2 hours. Is your website mobile friendly?
Oh, yeah.
If I'm going on the way to a cruise and you and I are doing business, or I'm looking for someone to do something while I'm gone and I got my phone out, can I look through your services on my phone comfortably, get examples, reach you without having any issues?
There's nothing worse than trash versions of mobile websites.
It's ridiculous. And in 2018, every like web host and web editor has a mobile view and a computer view. Most people just don't think to do it. They'll edit everything in the standard computer view and don't even think about mobile.
Yeah, some of them even do it for you automatically. It's just being aware of the right companies that do it.
It's true. Companies like Wix and Wheelie both, for the most part, will try to set up the mobile version as cleanly as possible. And then they let you go in and tweak the mobile version further in case there's things that you want to do. So if there's pictures that make sense on desktop but not on mobile, you can get those out, for example. So it's just a sign of laziness at this point. And that's not a way to get clients. If I look at your website and it looks bootleg and it looks lazy, like you didn't put the effort in, why would I think that you're going to put in the effort for our work? So the number 2 tip, to me, it's super huge. Make sure your website is mobile friendly. Number 3, less is more.
Clean, boys. Keep it clean.
Keep it clean, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. The biggest draw, again, going back to Wix, I should get a Wix check. This is fucked up. The biggest draw for going to Wix was they had a single page design for me where you can have one endless scrolling page that has all of the sections.
Nice.
And I think that's the best kind of website for pulling in new clients. I don't want you having to move around too much. If you click at the top of my page, it'll scroll you down to where you need to see. But the only way to make that happen is if you keep your site simple. If there's too much information, you end up kind of pushing people away. I should be able to go to that first page and within 30 seconds, get a sense of everything, but not be overwhelmed.
Definitely. I mean, kind of those like quick access point, like those quick tags that kind of drag you through the page.
Yes.
Those are amazing. I love that feature.
Those, I forget what they're called in Weebly. In Wix, they're called anchors. And
anchors, yeah.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like the contact section is in your menu and you click it up top and then it just scrolls down the page to that anchor and to that part. It's perfect, especially on mobile. Like if you have limited screen access, you just want to be able to click where you want to go and go there. And the number one way to do that is to have a simple ass website that has exactly what you need. So the last thing that we'll talk about, this is the 4th tip when it comes down to your website. And this is super important for rap folks. This is super important for most progressive music and niche music. And that's language, messaging, and voice on your website are key. If you're using, if I want to work with new MCs, right? If I want to work with new SoundCloud rappers, for example, and I sound like I'm in the Furious 5 on my website, you know what I mean? If you can read the text on your site and it sounds like the type of person that isn't cool in your industry, there's a problem. You want to be able to use really small keywords, phrasing, voice, and this is where sometimes you might have to get the help of somebody else if you're not a good writer. But you want to have little terms that are only insider terms, things that only your community knows.
Right. A great way to do that is to, if you read like Hot 97 articles, they kind of have the lingo down, you know, that's modern, that upcoming generations that are buyers are actually able to understand.
That's real. Reading other publications, reading in general is a real good way of staying on top of your writing, but reading other publications in the world that you're trying to talk to is a real good way of making sure your language translates when you're writing your site. That's a good way of thinking about it. If your website was an ad in the source or on the source's blog, would that text make sense? Would it stick out? Would it be weird, or would it sit right and okay with Genius and with Hip Hop Weekly and all those other, you know, industries that are within yours? Conversely, does it sound like you're lame? You know, like if I'm talking about, I don't know, ragers and all kinds of like metal themed terms and I'm trying to book an R&B client, it doesn't make sense. If I talk about real clean, pristine mixes and I'm trying to book a metal client, it doesn't make sense. So look at the person that you're trying to book and then read your website like that person. If that language doesn't match, it's probably not going to work out. So that's all I had, man. I know this is a less creative and less like sound designy episode, but I think it's important to really talk about the business side of things.
These are very helpful tactics that will definitely increase your workflow overall.
You know what I mean? I think the more you get quick on your workflow, the more productive you are, the more you can then just play and use the product of your playing to be successful. It's about aiming before you shoot. Lean, any gigs we should know about for this week? Any upcoming projects we should know about for this week? Any hoes we should look at on Instagram?
So this week, I'm at the Jimmy rooftop in Manhattan on I think it's 58 Thompson in Soho, something like that.
When is
18 Thompson?
What day of the week is that?
This Friday, 5:30 to 9:30 p.m. Yes. 5:30 to 9:30 p.m. at the Jimmy on top of the James Hotel. After that, I'm at Trophy Bar in Williamsburg on Broadway and Hooper.
Shout out to Trophy Bar, man. Good.
Yep.
Salute to Chippy Nonstop. We used to get very drunk and party there. That sounded
Yes.
way like sketchier than it need to, but yeah.
Yeah, so I'm at Trophy Bar from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. So I'm doing 5:30 to 9:30 at the Jimmy, and then 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. at Trophy Bar.
Another one of those back-to-back marathon sets, man. What's the vibe? What are you thinking about spinning, or have you gone through that yet? Or are you just kind of playing it by ear?
The Jimmy's rooftop vibes. So it's kind of a more expensive spot, little higher end bar on top of a nice hotel.
Nice.
So I'll do some like funk, some Motown stuff. I might bring it up with a little bit of 90s hip hop. Nothing too crazy. I'm just warming the night up for him because I'm gonna go spaz at Trophy Bar.
Nice.
So that's more of a turn up spot, dance spot. Kind of play whatever you want for the most part, as long as it's keeping the people moving and drinking, stuff like that.
Man, I love your
definitely a money making day, so it's good.
Hey, any money making day is a great one. I was gonna say I love you have this professional approach to your gigs, and you understand what you're supposed to bring to each. And what I really respect out of when you split days like this, especially because I've seen it so many times, I've seen when to hold back and then when to really push. And for you to say
definitely.
like this first gig is going to be me opening up, I'm doing the funk vibe, the Motown vibe, so I can save myself and really go ham later on. That's an important thing to learn, man. Yeah, and I see it happen
it
too.
takes
Like
time.
you save that energy up. It's almost like you charging like a Dragon Ball character and shit. But by the end of the night,
let me spin for 4 hours to warm up for this 6 hour set.
that's amazing, man. Much respect. Best of luck on the gig. If I don't remember, please remind me. I want to discuss it next week and see how things went.
Hell yeah. I'm gonna go back to finish recording this track.
What kind of track you working on?
It's probably the third track of my next EP that's coming out.
Fucking dope. Can't wait to hear it. Well, we're gonna let Lean get back to work. I'm gonna get back to work. You should be getting to work. You got a bunch of ideas. Start with your goddamn calendar. Until next week, this is your boy Professor Sense.
Yeah, it's Lean Automatic.
Always good to talk to y'all. Peace.